So we'll end as we began. The time is now yours, brothers and sisters. What we want to hear from you. Take just a few seconds, a minute, whatever you want. We want to hear kind of one of three things. We're done. What is something that what is an aha moment you had? Something that you learned from this weekend? Something someone said that inspired you? Some interaction you had? So just an aha moment. What is something that you're grateful for, or what's something that you're going to do differently when you leave as a result of what you learned this time? And the reason why we encourage that last one is because, according to Stephen Covey or whatever, Tony Robbins, when you articulate verbally to a group some intention to make a change, you're more likely to actually follow through with it. Is that all right? Pick one. And you'll just pass the mic. So we don't have to go in order. We'll just give them.
You can do more than one. It's just that we need to be at about a minute each.
Okay, a minute.
Actually, let's we're in the camera slip so we can just have everybody walk up.
Up here?
Right here. Okay, so you and I can sit down.
Thank you.
Okay, just a minute. All right. I think the biggest thing is that I remember when I was at home and I was always fluctuating between anger and fear and sadness at home and feeling very lost in this transition. And now that I've come here and I made these relationships and I feel this joy and I see hope in my future and that I can navigate this whole transition. And that has been the biggest thing. Like, I'm not going to go home and just wallow in my sadness and anger. But I have hope, and I'm so excited to start these groups in my area and to make those connections. And another thing was, which isn't as powerful, but it's just interesting that when I was processing this grief that I have about God and just realizing that I have that grief, and it has to do with my father leaving my family and how I replaced that with the church and how now I have to grieve that all over again. And so I can understand where that's coming from, and I have another hope that I can find that peace in my heart through meditation and through principles that we've learned. And that's all.
I think John said one of the most profound things. What's that?
I'm sorry.
Okay. John said one of the most profound things towards the end about, do you think you're so arrogant that you're going to go out and change everybody? And that's not the purpose of this. The purpose is to lead our best lives, be good examples of what we believe in, and allow people to believe what they believe in. I came here wanting to convince family members that this is just crazy or you're crazy, but they're not. It works for them. This will work for us, and it's okay. And I like my wife said, we're excited to help those in our community of Colorado Springs to find peace beyond the frustration that we've felt for the last several months. They may have been feeling it for much longer. I do see a lot of pain in this room. Thankfully, my wife is with me. Many of your spouses are not with you. I don't know what that feels like, but I appreciate the suffering that you're going through, appreciate the growth that's going to take place in your lives. So this is a great opportunity, and thank you, John, for that insight about us not being arrogant or forceful.
It's kind of ironic that the feeling the most prominent feeling I have right now is actually sadness, because for the last 2.5 days, you guys have all become my family. And I'm sad it's over. John and Natasha and Margi, I can't thank you enough for dedicating your lives to this cause, to helping people like us. I came on this retreat beforehand with fear and question marks about how do I reconcile how I feel? How do I talk to my friends and family? How do I get on the same page with my wife? How do I parent my children? And I feel like I have a full tool belt now of how to do this, and I'm excited, almost anxious to hit the road running and actually make some changes and do these things. There are things I want to tell my wife now that I've never been able to tell her. Now she's probably freaking out. I don't know. But I want to be vulnerable, and I want to do this. So that's my biggest aha moment, and I thank everyone so much. This has been a wonderful experience for me.
Once again, should have let him go first. No, it's hard because I feel like we've all become so close, and seeing your faces and just realizing like how deep connections that we've made here, and like she took what I was going to say, and he took what I was going to say, you know, and I feel like it's just going to continue, and so this is just a moment to continue to help each other grow. And so the last thing I wrote down in my Brene Brown notebook was, there is not one recipe for joy. There's not one recipe for healing. And everybody has their own path toward that. And the fact that I can stand here and not be crying my eyes out and have hope, and knowing that I can go home and I have power and I'm strong, and that I've always known that, but I never felt worthy to own it. And that's what I gained here, is that I have value, and I knew it was there. I just didn't know how to find the courage to be the person that I am. So thank you so much.
So I think there's so many things that I am going to leave here with, but the main thing I think is that I'm going to leave here feeling more empowered to fill the container that I've spent the first half of my life building with things that I want to do, and being my more authentic self. And I thank all of you for sharing your stories and your pain and struggles. It's very helpful. And to John and Natasha and Margi for all that you do, thank you very much. I also leave here more emotionally exhausted, but that's a good thing. Okay, thanks.
I have 3 words that have come into my head. The first one is gratitude. So thank you for everyone who put this together and helped us, and all the participants here, for your vulnerability, for your words. The second is words. And the third word for me is intentional, because I have so many words that are in my head all the time, not always positive. And I need to be more intentional in being kind to myself with those words, and being more intentional with the conversations that I have with my family who are still believing, so that the words that come out of my mouth are kind to them and honorable and respectful to them. So thank you for this.
I also am thankful for this great gift, for all those who gave their means and their time to make it happen, for all the comments that everybody volunteered up for their vulnerability. One quick thing that hit me real late here was when John said that influence takes more work than control does. And most of you probably aren't old enough to know this. There was a commercial way back in the day, and it was an oil filter commercial that said, you can pay me now or you can pay me later, right? You can do that oil change, and it's not going to take much time, and you can be on the road, or you can neglect it, and you're going to need a new engine. And I totally agree with John. It takes more work initially to have influence rather than control, but it takes a lot more work and time in the long term to have control, because it's going to rear its ugly head, and you're going to spend more time trying to fix things that you didn't take care of initially. So I hope that I've learned the lesson, because I like to control, and especially not just when you're parenting, but when you're working in all the relationships, and especially when it comes to this issue that we all are dealing with about the relationships with our family, and I shouldn't say we, that I use the influence in a positive way to try and have a relationship rather than force my ideals on those around me. So I'm grateful for that I was here, that people made this possible, and I'll be cheering for every one of you wherever you are, that you will find the peace that you deserve.
This is an impossible task to just pick one thing. I guess the thing that I'm most excited about is trying to change my framework and how I parent my children, and trying to be more conscious, trying to develop stronger emotional intimacy with my kids, and trying to really figure out who they are and what belief systems or what values they have, and really trying to develop those bonds a lot better than what I've previously done. I didn't need to add more books to my reading list, but I've added so many more books, and I'm excited for the journey ahead.
So I wasn't really sure what to expect. And, you know, kind of came into this like not even knowing the schedule and what are all the things we were going to talk about. And I think with a certain sense of, oh, well, it's been 3 years since I left, and I've probably already like figured everything out. So definitely not. And, you know, that became really apparent right away. I think a few of the things that I'm most excited about is the values, like talking about that, you know, realizing that means something different than we thought, and that I can figure those out. And, you know, a lot of us, especially, well, many of us talked about like not knowing who we are. And I feel like, oh, well, that's a really easy way to figure out who you are. And so I can go home and figure out who I am. Like, so anyway, thank you.
I think what I've become most clear on is, well, I initially got most excited about is identifying my values, and I can't recall who kind of encouraged us to spend hours on it. Yeah, okay, Abe. But I think it's clear to me right now, as of our last lesson, at least for the next month before my daughter leaves on her mission, what I proclaim that I most value is intimacy and connection with her and each of my children. And this parenting presentation, I didn't come with that in mind at all, and yet it was incredibly powerful. Getting really clear that I'm still a control freak, even though I don't perceive myself as that. But now I'm seeing, my eyes have been open, and I'm going to go home and get really focused on seeking connection and intimacy with my husband and my children.
Before I came to this retreat, I was so full of anxiety and anger and frustration, and I was somewhat feebly attempting to write a book, which was supposed to be my missionary tract to all my believing family members and friends to convince them that faith crisis is something that we all should go through. And then I was also had multiple fantasies of getting a PhD in Mormon history just to make sure I wasn't crazy. So just make sure that I always had all of my facts straight all the time. And throughout the course of this weekend, I felt so much peace and a huge shift in my energy. And especially, I can still see that slide about laying down the rope, letting go of that rope and approaching all of these treasured relationships with just acceptance and understanding that if there's an arrow there, I'll just accept it. Mixed metaphors with the Buddhist analogy as well. So I'm so excited to go home and just be mindful and present to all of the wonderful relationships I have and just bring love to those spaces in my life.
Two quick things. One is that it was really useful for me to think about emotional intimacy on a scale. Maybe I just love numbers, but I like the idea of thinking about people in terms of how much do I want to share with, how much can I really expect from that relationship? How much do I want to invest in it? And then the second thing was I'm really investigating within myself the tendency to have that weird cycle of emotional intimacy where I attempt something and then run away, and then he attempts something and runs away. I'm not sure that I can fix that problem, but I think maybe just observing it for a while will be helpful. So.
Wow, it's been a great weekend. I'm just feeling really grateful for this information. I've heard, I think this is the third time I've heard some of the presentations, so I've had some time to actually use it in my life, and it's blessed my life so much. I just feel, so grateful. One of the things I'm really grateful for is we got the information before we told our believing friends. And I was about to handle it all wrong. And so we had the information, we handled it, we went to dinner with them and told them and made them feel safe, and they just expressed their love for us. And these are friends that we love. We're the same as family. And we kept these friendships, and it means so much to me. And I feel so grateful I had that information because, And I've used so many other things too. I've used the parenting to help my son feel heard and have a great school year. I've used the love sandwich so much to help some boundaries for my son that's gay. I've learned so much, and mostly just being with you helps me feel like I'm not alone. I love all my post-Mormon friends, just deep connection. There's something else I was going to say, I can't think. But, I feel a lot of hope. And I feel happy. It's been a long time since I felt really happy. It's been a hard year and a half. really hard, and I can see the light. I'm doing so good. And that's why I feel so passionate about this information, and because it just helped us so much. So thank you so much. Be last again.
Thanks, Kim, for giving me the mic, and thanks, Kim and Clint, for doing this. I mean, what? Jen? Jen. Jen, I'm so sorry. Jenny? Jenny? Okay, sorry. Anyway, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And it is wonderful to feel like you're not alone and that you have friends and relationships. And the number one thing I'm probably going to take from this is that to be healthy, you don't necessarily have to be happy. And I also feel like I'm not going to be as angry when I'm dealing with people because I have other people that I can talk to, and if I need to vent, I have the right people to vent to now. And I also have some really good tools to use even in my classroom and with my own grandchildren about how to raise a child and be really emotionally aware. This is something that is really pertinent to what's going on in our world today. It's something that we really need to be aware of. Emotional intelligence is huge, and it's huge with adults, but even more so with young children. And I think we can see that I think we can see it just in the world around us. If we are more loving and understanding of one another, we wouldn't have the problems we do with politics and all the other things as well. So anyway, that's enough of my philosophy, but thank you so much.
So for me, the last topic was the most important, probably the one I wished I would have heard a few months ago or maybe sooner, because I've made a few mistakes with communication with other people. So basically, what I take out of it is you should probably just appreciate and love people for who they are. Don't try and change them. I mean, we're kind of raised to be missionaries, and then when we go through the transition, I think we kind of want to be anti-missionaries. At least I felt a little bit of responsibility to at least the people I'd brought in to the church, my children mainly. I didn't serve a mission, so I didn't have feel any further responsibility that way. But anyway, I do think that you should probably add Buzz Lightyear to your cartoon, because he's a pretty good one. If you think about him before, when he reported to Star Command, and then remember how sad he was when he went through his transition. The whole audience was terrible sad. So I think he's a pretty good one. But he did turn out to be a pretty cool guy after all was done. So.
My turn already? Thanks for thinking of Buzz, because it's like, how could we forget him? He's so classic. Anyway, it's so hard to think of just one thing, but I think the thing that keeps coming over and over in my head is I feel like my whole life I've spent trying to run from. I feel like I always feel fight or flight, and usually it's never fight. I just want to run and run and run. But I don't like running physically. I just want to get out. And the thing I want to run from all the time is pain. And so today, to learn that pain is essential, or this weekend, whenever we learned it, because that's kind of all a jumble, but pain is essential to our growth. And so to understand that it's okay to sit with the pain, which is really hard, and I'm going to have to get used to what that feels like in order to feel the growth that I need to feel, because I don't want to be stagnant. I don't want to just sit there and where I'm at, because this isn't a good place. I want to be able to move forward in relationships and just whatever I encounter in life. I want to be able to know that I can work through it and not run from it, and I think that's the biggest thing. So
So my shelf broke finally just in July, and I felt like I broke too. And I'm sure a lot of you kind of remember that feeling. And I described it as like I felt like there was all these pieces around me, and I didn't know where they fit. And I came here feeling super angry, super frustrated, betrayed, and like not even knowing where to start to pick up the pieces. And now I feel like I have direction, I have hope, I have excitement for the future and what I can create and how I'm going to put all these pieces back together. And I think one of the biggest things, or the things I'm going to focus on next, is when we talked about what is the thing that you're avoiding. I have been avoiding self-care. I've been avoiding slowing down, and just taking care of myself. There's a lot of kind of guilt and shame associated with self-care, but I know that I can't do anything else until if I'm in that bad place. And that kind of came with the parenting, is that if you don't heal yourself, if you're not coming from a good space, then you can't really affect other people in a healthy way either. And I just thought I could, like, I just push through. So I think that's my biggest takeaway. And I do feel like I love you all in this room. It was an experience that I always wanted in church and never got. It was a huge epiphany for me even the first night, that this is what I was craving and this is what I was missing. And it's been years that I have thought that. So thank you so much. Thank you for this event. I just can't thank you enough. It's been amazing.
I feel like I'm going to hyperventilate again. I am one of those people that feels really lucky that I have really good relationships in my life. But I have just felt so misunderstood lately. And I think that I've just wanted to be seen and by the people that I love. And I think what I go away with is that that's not so important. It's a little bit humbling to just say maybe I need to see them where they are at, and that that will enhance my relationships more than me trying to explain anything to them. And the reason I chose my really rebellious tattoo, I chose a hummingbird because hummingbirds, they go around from tree to tree and flower to flower, and they spread goodness. And I think what I take away from this is that we can all do that, and mostly not in anything we say, but just in how we live. So I really just want to try to live more positively. And I think when I do that, that the people in my life that I care about will see me. And what I go away with this weekend is feeling like I was seen by all of you in all my mess. So thank you for giving me that. And I see all of you. And I came for connection, and I got that. So thank you. The last thing I'll say is, if it's all true, I'm okay with that, because I will be happy to live in the Celestial Kingdom with all of you.
Yeah, I one thing I'm really grateful
for too is I've met a lot of new friends, and I'm an introvert, and I've been wandering this lone and dreary world for a long time, to quote one of my favorite movies, and this has been great, because that's not good for me, and coming out and talking with people. In fact, what I would encourage, if anyone's still interested, we have our Facebook group, is especially people here in the area, if you want to get together, monthly or something for dinner, just feedback. Because what I also learned is I have a lot of work to do. And especially on the emotional intimacy part, I am really, really behind on that. My spouse and I are, and my kids, and that's something I need to work on. The one thing that was really inspirational for me, and I want to thank John and Margi and Natasha for being vulnerable and telling us about some of their own personal struggles. So, John mentioned how his family went to therapy multiple times, and my vision of therapy was The Simpsons, that old episode when the family goes and Bart's hitting his sister with the bat, and they're strangling the dog, and they just go back and forth, and totally unsuccessful, and they just go back to their same kind of dysfunctional family. And I realized, hey, if these therapists need therapy, then I certainly need therapy, and my family needs therapy. So I have a lot of work ahead of me. But thank you, everyone.
This is the first time I've felt peace and hope for 6 months. I can't thank everybody enough. I can't thank John, Natasha, Margi, Clint, and Jenny. Thank you so much. I finally have found some peace and some hope. I am also very much introverted. I don't make friends very easily. I've probably made more connections in this weekend than I have in the past 10 years. And I view all of you guys as very close friends, and I hope we can continue that relationship. The one thing that you put words to that I was going through was the loss of status, the Nephi effect. That was what I was really grappling with. And when I saw you put words to that, it really meant a lot to me. I noticed that that's exactly what I was feeling, and realizing that I need to be okay with that, and understanding how I can do that, and realizing that through emotional intimacy and connection is how I'm going to really gain respect from my family members and my friends, and letting that whole concept go of losing the loss of status.
All right, so this is so far out of my comfort zone, I'm bringing a cheat sheet. So, and apparently, if you put a bunch of introverts on one row, it's probably not a good idea. Maybe we should mix it up there. But the thing that really hit me hard was kind of the saying, "into me seeing." I thought that was very impactful for me, and letting them see all of me and getting to know all of me, and that intimacy is being real. For so long, 34 years, I've never let anyone in to fully see me for who I am. And I've been so scared for the last 11 years to let my wife in. And so taking away, I want to be able to have that emotional intimacy with my wife. And the other thing that struck me was there is no growth without pain, but there's a difference between pain and harm. And I always thought that that was the same thing. And I didn't want to talk to my wife about things and let her in or my loved ones, because I didn't want to cause them pain. And now realizing that with that, even though it sucks sometimes, that's where growth happens. And so it's something that I want to take away and be able to apply and strengthen my marriage and my relationships.
two. Who wants two?
I got two. So. Learned so much this week.
Actually, sorry, use the other one.
Oh. Mixed them up. This one? Got it. Okay. All right. When I first saw the invite online about coming here, I remember I was just going through just a very angry. I feel like I've been pretty angry for several months now, and I just knew I needed to move forward. But I just was like that whole avoidance thing that I think was yesterday we were all talking about. I was just doing that basically with my whole life, other than like what I had to get done. And so I'm just grateful that I was able to come, and there were just so many great messages. The whole vulnerability today, I know that's an issue for me. And when we were talking yesterday, I believe, about just accepting that the first half of my life, that whole container concept, and to not be so like I was having a really hard time. I listened to a podcast about being grateful, but I feel like being here has helped me accept that I can be grateful for the beginning of my life, the construct of my container in the Mormon Church, and that I can choose to look at it in a good way, and that there were blessings or good things that have come from it. Anyways, I do appreciate all the insights that I've gotten, and for Natasha and John and Margi, and I'm just so grateful for everything I've learned while I've been here this weekend. Thanks.
Hello. So for me, I know that the one thing that brought me a lot of comfort in Mormonism was direction. I always said it in my prayers. I was always so thankful that I knew the way and I knew everything about what to do. It all felt like a path. But the truth is, it was a very bland path as well. I just didn't see that until later in life. But because of that, the thing I've been avoiding is trying to figure out what's the path now, and really specifically for my kids. So it's really nice to see some of the actual statistics and documentation and the work and the studies and all of this effort that's gone into by so many others, that we can now stand on your shoulders and other people's shoulders in these books. And I'm just really glad that there is direction that we can take to go and provide the best opportunity possible for ourselves and for our children. And so I'm publicly announcing that that's the thing I'm going to do. I'm going to not avoid that anymore. I'm going to dig in and educate myself and make a difference.
All right, I changed the very last. Yeah, I've changed what I'm going to say. Like every person, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to say that, and I'm going to say that, and now. First of all, John Dehlin, I just cannot express my love. I just have so much love for you, and I'm just so grateful for you as an individual, and to hear you kind of tell your story, and listening to you for all these years. And yeah, I do. I love your voice, by the way. You've given me this outlet in private to kind of be like, oh, I can talk about this with myself and John Dehlin and your guest hosts, and that's been such a blessing to me. And then Natasha, I'm kind of jealous of your husband, actually. I just since I've been listening to you, it's been eye-opening to me as a human, and that we're sexual creatures, and that's okay. We can be sexual creatures, and we don't have to be ashamed of that. Period. And there's a lot there that I'm excited to explore with my wife, and I'm excited. And then Margi, you're beautiful. You're married to John Dehlin. I started following you on Instagram, and I started following you listening to the gift of the Mormon Faith Crisis and your insight to mindfulness and kind of living in the moment, and it's really kind of resonated with me. So thank you very much. So, and then to Clint and your wife Jenny and this gentleman up here, I forget his name, but he's up here just making sure everything works. I'm just so grateful for these people that just have given us this platform to kind of speak from and create this beautiful community. Sorry, I'm going to take a few more minutes here because I have a lot on my mind. This whole time I was thinking about my beautiful, beautiful wife, and her name is Annalie, and I would have loved to have her here to meet all of you people. And the reason I didn't want her to come is because I didn't know what to expect. I wanted to protect her from these other ex-Mormons. And so, but as I've been here and I kept thinking, I'm like, I wish she were here. I wish she was here with me. She's very much in a space where she believes, and but sorry, I'm starting to shake. But she's been the most supportive, believing member I could ask for on my journey. Like, she's been nothing more than listening and loving, and she's never once shamed me, and she allows me to learn and to grow, and I'm so excited to go back and to build on the values that we have as a marriage, and to raise our beautiful children, and to kind of continue what we started when we first got married, and we had this hope for the future and this eternal marriage. I probably believe more in eternal marriage right now than I ever have, because of the connection and the love that I have with my wife, Annalie. So I'm excited, and thank you to everyone. So.
I got to say one thing too, but you can come up. You can come up. So yeah, John and Margi and Natasha, thank you, of course, for doing this. And you guys have gotten a lot of accolades, and you deserve it because you've devoted your lives to something that really helped people. Jenny and I experienced it, and it touched our hearts and our souls. And so we really appreciate what you guys have devoted your lives to. But I also want to say thank you to each of you for just at the drop of a hat, and with very little information, and I'm sure that was uncomfortable for many of you, flying across the country to show up at something that you had just no idea what to expect, and then to understand that you were going to be filmed, and I'm sure that tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people will watch this, and to be so vulnerable, and to put yourselves out there, and to know that that's what kind of brings fulfillment to life, like putting ourselves out there, and then realizing that people still love us in spite of all of our imperfections, in spite of all of our flaws that we all have, right? And so thank you to each of you for being here. And then Cody, thank you for just being so awesome, making this happen. Thank you. So that's it. I appreciate you guys all being here. Thanks, John, for letting me be a small part of this. And this is not the end. This is only the beginning. That's all I can say.
Okay.
Are you going to have closing thoughts? I have two closing
Yeah,
thoughts.
go ahead.
Does this work?
Yeah, just if you're on the table, it'll be on you.
Oh, okay. So two closing thoughts. Well, actually three. But one is give grace to yourselves, right? Many of you were like, I did things wrong. You don't know until you know, right? We're teaching you things you didn't know. So have a lot of grace for yourself. 2, vulnerability hangovers. They're a thing. So if you're a little irritable or weird or whatever for the next few days, that's okay. And number 3 is just my gratitude. That you would let us in, that you would tell us your stories. It never gets old, never. Each one of you, I don't know what it is, but it's a connection. And I couldn't feel more privileged or honored to be in the presence of your stories. So thank you.
Margi had this idea that we should end with a song, and the song that she thought would be really cool to end with is a song called Holy Now. Holy Now is this amazing song. You should all listen to it if you haven't heard it. But it's about how this guy loses his faith, but now sees holiness in everything. He used to see holiness in his religion. He lost his faith, but all of a sudden the world became holy. And it's a great song. But part of it is about miracles and how he used to think about certain religious stories as being miraculous. Now he sees his entire life as being miraculous. And so to just borrow on that theme, what we did this weekend for me is miraculous. And here's why. We've done 30 or 40 of these retreats. And number one, it's always been, you know, if we added up all the people that have been exposed to what we just experienced, at most it's going to be 400 people. Is that right? Or 4,000? 100 times 40, 4,000. 4,000 people. 4,000 people at the most, right? It's probably less than that. But every single time we've done it, people have said, this has transformed my life. And so what Clint and Jenny basically said to me is, why are we limiting who can have this experience? It's just not right, you know? So I'm like, well, what do you propose? And he's like, well, let's record the whole thing. Let's buy a bunch of equipment and hire staff and like find people who are willing to come and record an entire weekend. And that's, I mean, from my vantage point, that was ridiculous. And I'm sitting across from Clint, and he's not even in the room. Where are you, Clint? Like, I guess he'll have to watch this afterwards. And I'm sitting across from Clint at like, the sushi place. What's it called? Tsunami. And I'm like, you're not going to follow through on this. You know, people come to me all the time and say, I've got this idea. I think, John, you should do this. You should do that. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we do this? And I'm looking at Clint and I'm like, you're not going to follow through on this. Like, okay, but I'm not going to like say no, but you're going to be like one of 10,000 people who gave me an idea or made a commitment and then just completely flake out. You know what I mean? And it's fine because you never know. Maybe one will come through. But Clint and Jenny actually came through and they like bought TVs and cameras and tripods and sound equipment. And they planned and organized this whole thing so that we didn't have to even think about it. And they actually showed up and got staff and volunteers to help and freaking paid for the whole thing. Who does that, right? So to just Jenny and Clint, what a miracle. Thank you. Thank you. But the cool thing is now, like, I always think when we've done these retreats in the past, we've just flooded people with information, just jammed them with information in their brains, right? And they leave with a couple things that they remember. But the fact that we've recorded this whole thing for whatever value we've been able to create, and by the way, the value isn't just up here. The majority of the value that's been generated is your contributions. That's going to be much more powerful than a bunch of slides, and pedagogy that's been kind of pushed on people, right? Well, that's all captured. So now not only if you're like, oh, I remember that parenting thing, and what was that thing that was said, you're going to be able to go back to the presentation and watch it. Or, oh, what was that story that one person shared that really touched me about emotional intimacy? You'll be able to go back and watch it, right? But it's not just you, right? Now, thousands of people have this content that's going to be available for not just now, for who knows how long. And I know that's scary to some of you, but that's powerful, right? That's powerful. Everything that got shared this weekend is now going to be available for other people to benefit from. And who knows how many people are going to want to watch a whole weekend's worth of content. But I'm always surprised. I put out an 11-hour podcast episode, and people watch every hour of it and say they didn't want it to end, right? So there will be people that probably watch this whole weekend, and they'll like stop you at the grocery store and say, you were in that retreat. I remember you. You gave that introduction. You shared that one story about blah, 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 blah. That's super powerful. But there's something that's even more powerful. We have modeled something transformative, and a few of you made that joke about how, what if church had been like this? What if work were like this? Or what if whatever, what if we could have our families be like this? And what we have modeled, it's not just the content that we presented. It's not just the vulnerability that you shared. What we modeled is an experience of people being willing to be vulnerable, of people introducing themselves at the beginning, of a bunch of people sharing in an experience, being vulnerable, loving and accepting each other, applauding at everyone's comments throughout the entire experience, and then wrapping it up with kind of what they loved and valued and learned from it all. That is in and of itself is transformative. And whether it would be marriage stuff or sex stuff or relationship stuff or work stuff, this was a powerful, the retreats that we've developed, and I have to say that this has been like 4 or 5 years of a lot of pain and sweat and blood and tears and learning, that with this wonderful partner here and with Margi's support, we've cultivated this type of experience very deliberately and thoughtfully and with a lot of sacrifice. That model is now shared and open sourced. I was so inspired by a 60 Minutes interview I watched with the founder of Tesla. What's his name? Elon Musk. So this guy is developing some of the most, with partners, a lot of the most revolutionary technology around electrical cars that the world has ever seen. The type of stuff that can transform our environment, pollution, our use of resources. And do you know what he did with all the intellectual property that he's developed? It's not, I'm going to protect it so that I can make as much money as possible. He's saying we're open sourcing all the technology for our electric cars so that any of our competitors is free to adopt the intellectual property without paying for it. And he said, if by some way our competitors become so good at creating electric cars with our own technology that they put us out of business, we will have succeeded, because then we will have transformed the automobile industry and thus improved the world. So when Clint was like, I know you've been charging people $400, a person to do these events, and I know you've been limiting people's access to it. Why don't you just give it away for free? And I'm like, let me just think about that for a second. I had 6 years of my PhD, 4 years of experience, and we're just going to share this now so that any therapist, any coach, any person that wants to give someone this experience can just now do that, and we don't make any money off of it.
I'm trying to move to Utah, people.
But he's like, yeah, do that. And at first I'm just like, that makes zero business sense. Like, this is valuable stuff that we have curated and collected over time. Just give it away. And then after a while, I'm just like, yeah, just give it away. And who knows what beautiful things will come, not just from the content, but from the process that we've modeled now, and that other people are free to steal and replicate and duplicate and share. It doesn't matter, because what if the good that we've done here models and has a much bigger impact than we could ever imagine, not just in even the post-Mormon space, but in other spaces. Where have you ever seen a weekend retreat where everybody openly shared and was vulnerable, talked about the most sensitive possible things, and filmed the whole thing for the world to see? Has it ever? Tony Robbins, Brene Brown, nobody's doing this. We did it. We did it this weekend. And who knows what legs it might have. Maybe it'll do nothing. But I think it's a miracle that we pulled this off.
And it goes back to our values and the abundance model versus a scarcity model, right? Which I really value. So it's right up my alley.
So you all helped to make a miracle happen. And so thank you to all of you so much for being a part of this. Thank you. Standing ovation. Yes, absolutely. Standing ovation. Woo! Really quick, Cody, I have no idea how much they're paying you, but what I know for sure is they're not paying you enough. And I know that you're not doing this for the money, even though that you may get some measly compensation for it. Do you want to share anything? Just you've been able to be a silent observer. You don't have to. Is there anything you'd like to say? Yeah. Okay, come on up, Cody. Let's give, because Cody's one of those wise and deep people who, yeah.
I hate being on camera, like legit. I hate being on camera. I grew up a gay Mormon boy, not having any opportunity really to learn how to be in a relationship. I wasn't allowed to. And I had a really tough one that ended about 5 years ago, and that really was a lot harder than going through a Mormon Faith Crisis for me, 10 times harder. So a lot of this kind of seems easy to me, the whole getting through the transition, but I'm now in the very early stages of a relationship, and I'm learning skills, especially from this. I'm going to cut this out, by the way. This is not but like I'm learning.
Here's the power.
Legit, I have the power. But I'm learning skills, and even last night my brain was fried from doing this and getting therapy. And, I'm having a beer with him, and I'm asking him, "Hey, what are your values?" So I'm learning things now that I wish I had learned a long time ago. So, thank you guys.
So super quickly, do you have?
Well, I just had to let one comment not stand.
Okay.
John said, and this might not go anywhere. And then I was going to say, but I was behind the camera, but this might change the world.
Yes.
And that's all. I just couldn't let that stand. I'm sorry.
That's right. So stay in touch. Use the Facebook group as a way for us all to stay in touch, to share resources, celebrations, setbacks. What's that? Reunions. Yeah. That'd be fun. A cruise, whatever. If you feel called to create a Thrive community or a little support group, please do that. If you just go to Mormon Spectrum or whatever and find the community that would be of use to you, please find community. Create community if you don't have one locally and you feel like you're in a position to be able to do that. Please stay in touch. We'd love to see you in November, but we understand if you can't make it. Is there anything else we want to say, but kind of before we
Somebody
end?
said cruise. I'm doing the cruise this coming summer. So
There's the Natasha cruise.
NatashaParker.org. You can check it out.
Get help. If don't underestimate the value of a coach or a therapist. And that's I've got clients. I don't need necessarily more clients, so that's not to be self-serving. Get help if you need it. Stay in touch. We love you, seriously. This feels like family. I hope we can do this again. We are going to do this again. So if you're in the position to be able to come back to the next one, we're going to do it again. And I don't want this to end. But it's time to go. Isn't this wonderful? Love you guys. Thank you. Yeah. Stay in touch.